First, I'd like to welcome everyone to the Athletic Foundations Workshop Series. I started Athletic Foundations in order to provide the athletic community with the resources I felt were lacking. I'm DJ Taylor, founder of Athletic Foundations. Tonight's workshop is led by Daniel Heller, and it is on continuing education. Daniel and I have talked over the last few months about where not only his passions are, but where he can help pretty strategically with athletic foundations and delivering and sharing the message of how do we go about continuing education. So that's where tonight's topic, what to study now that you are done, came about. Daniel, you can take it from there.
Hi, everybody. My name is Coach Daniel Heller, and the reason we gave it that silly title, DJ, can you repeat the title for me? So now that he's muted, what to study now that you're done? So we finished school. Now, keep in mind, I'm talking primarily to strength and conditioning coaches. So we're done with our undergrad. We study to get our CSCS, and then we come to realize that certification is only good for 3 years before we have to either recertify or over those 3 years get what's called continuing education units. I didn't know where to start. So I went to conferences and just got the ball rolling, did FMS and TRX, and found out that there's a huge difference between a certification and professional development course. And then more comes with USA cycling, USA hockey. The difference is there. What do you need continuing education credits for? What do you need continuing education units for? How do different governing bodies mandate them? And so that's why we're here, because there's, even outside of strength and conditioning and the professional world, we're always forced to learn something new. Something's always evolving. In the automotive world, you're transitioning from internal combustion to electric. In your professional world, you might be switching roles from product development to a management position, but have never managed people and projects in a way that doesn't pertain to exactly what you're working on. So there's a lot of avenues to go down, and with the NSCA, there's 4 categories: A, B, C, D, and E. That's 5, so I can count. So the premise of today is I want to share with you what my continuing education journey looked like at the beginning, what it looks like now, and over the last couple of years, what did it turn into? When it started, and then, by the way, after about me talking and rambling on for about 10 minutes, I'm going to turn the floor over to everybody who's participating with us, and we will just throw some ideas around about where you see yourself going, and where you see yourself going, where you've been, and where you want to go. Over here. When I get excited and I start speaking and teaching, start moving, and I sweat a little bit, so I usually have a towel with me to wipe up sweat. So as I said, I started with my CSCS. Didn't know about CEUs, learned about them, did TRX. It's a professional training course. I get CEUs, but I can't call myself certified. FMS, I am certified, but there is no continuing education. They continue to develop it and make you take a new course, and sometimes they give it to you for free, other times they don't. Then there's other things. So you'll notice by my name, it says CSCS Star D. What that means is that I've done my continuing education for this recording period strictly through the NSCA to meet the needs to have that. Will I have that again next recording period? I don't know. Then you'll see RSCC, Registered Strength and Conditioning Coach. That says that I've been in the field for 3 years, been in the field a lot longer than that, working with athletes full time. That is my population. To maintain that, I have to take a quiz at the end of every year to maintain my RSCC. Then there's our governing bodies, USA Hockey and USA Cycling. Now, they have two different ways of doing these things. USA Cycling, or USAC, they require CEUs for, I think, two years is the recording period, and you have to do all of them through USA Cycling. Can't do it anywhere else. USA Hockey, they don't call them CEUs, but at the end of every, or at the beginning of every season, you have to do an age-specific module. I think it's every year, every 2 years, an age-specific module for the age group that you will be teaching that year. This is all continuing education. PMBI, Professional Mountain Bike Instructors Association. There are 3 levels. I'm level 1, waiting to do level 2. But at the end of 2 years, you have to do an hour-long online recertification course, just to make sure you're up to date with the procedures and policies of PMBIA. Now, that just runs down all the letters that are on the screen right now, or if you read the bio that's in the bio. Outside of that, recently the tactical field has, especially here in the US, has taken on 2 areas. There is, especially when it comes to the military, you have special forces and you have the H2F, or health and fitness program. Both are very different. I had no idea about the 2, so I had to do some continuing education. It started at National Conference, NSCA National Conference in Orlando. I learned about the differences and talked to a few people, then ended up going to the Tactical Strength and Conditioning Conference in Norfolk, Virginia. Continuing my process, I got CEUs from National Conference, got CEUs from TSAC. Both continuing education, going into category A, going for my CSCS with my Star D. Now, after I returned from that, I applied to some tactical positions at the local military base through one of the government contractors. This is all, after 15 years, I'm still learning. After that, I said, I don't think that's a route for me. After talking to some people in the field who have been coaching military, who have done the pilot program for the H2F, it wasn't for me. But I wouldn't have known that had I not gone to National Conference, had a conversation, went to TSAC, came back, took action, and that leads me to where I am today. My next goal is I want to train or coach high caliber desert racers for, let's say, the Baja 1000, or some of the more local races, or Dakar Rally. So I have to look at what are their needs? Are there any certifications that I need to prove my eligibility to coach that population, much like I did with mountain biking with USA Cycling or PMBI, because from those 2, I went on to coach mountain bikers for the last 5 years, and I enjoy it and I still do it. But I want to do something new, which requires me to learn something new. That's the continuing education journey, because no matter what you learn, there's always some sort of application to where you've been, where you are, and where you want to go. that's been a challenge for a lot of younger coaches that I talk to. At national conference, I met 5 coaches. That was their first time at a conference. They just finished grad school in the middle of COVID, where apparently the schools took the easy way out and just said, here you go, here's your degree. Then one of them had TSAC and wasn't sure if he was ready for the CSCS, but going into doing his master's. Another one, this was his first conference. He had no idea about how to network, who to talk to, what's next. So thinking about their future as far as how do I plan my CEUs? How do I budget for my CEUs? That's a 3-year process that I have to be ready for. So I'm here. I want to work with you to make sure that you stay on track to maintain your certification, continue your development, and enjoy the journey that is the profession you've chosen. With that, I want to invite DJ to come back on the air with me. And we're gonna, if nobody feels like sharing questions, that's okay, or comments. But let's see if we can come up with some examples for directions we can go of continuing education paths. DJ,
Daniel,
is anybody? Yep.
well, I was going to say thank you for sharing. That's awesome. Many that know me know that continuing education is one of my passions, and providing those opportunities is really what led to Athletic Foundations. It's one of those underlying streams, if you will, that pushed me to step away from my day-to-day in the private sector as a strength coach to start a nonprofit during a pandemic and really seek to provide the opportunities and serve the athletic community. Just looking over the notes I took, my journey, the letters behind my name, similar to yours, the star D behind the CSCS and the RSCC, but rather than USA Cycling, I followed USA Weightlifting.
Yeah.
And the reasoning for me was I always want to be ready to entertain a position on the collegiate level, whether that be football or Olympic.
Yeah.
And so, what was it, 3-4 years ago? It's longer than that. Wow. When the NC2A dropped the mandate that they upheld loosely on the front end, as far as the head spots and your big money spots requiring the CSCS and having the USAW as a placeholder initially,
Yeah.
I actually started hosting USA weightlifting certifications to help strength coaches keep their jobs. And that led to starting a weightlifting club, which initially was just to help make the process of scheduling those continuing education events a little more easier, but then actually started having athletes compete.
Yeah.
And so, I had to continue my education through USA weightlifting. All that to say, my journey's kind of been derived through the needs and the seats that I fill. I don't know if that applies with anyone else, but two things, more than two. No, yeah, two things that hit home. I did not plan my CEUs my first go around, and I definitely didn't budget for them. So talk about scrambling. missing out on the discounts that are given for the initial round of signups and having to pay full price.
Yeah.
I learned a lot that first go around, but that's been my journey so far with continuing education.
I want to touch on two things there. One is there's been some times where going back to my internship in undergrad, I thought that I had this really well-rounded internship that I apprenticed with someone who was in the private sector doing high school, someone who was doing personal training in Minnesota, a medical anthropologist here in Gig Harbor, teacher's aide at Bastyr at the university I was going to. What I missed out on was somebody saying, Daniel, if I get that you're working with a wide range of people right now, but if you don't have either Olympics or college, as those are people you've coached, you're not going to be able to go above and beyond that level that you're currently at. So going pro probably won't happen. Going to college or coaching NCAA Division I probably won't happen. Coaching Olympics or unless somebody I coach in the private sector, say for mountain biking, figure skating, or hockey, makes an Olympic team, probably won't be going there either. So in turn, what does that lead me to? Well, I found out that the most I could do was coach an H2F program, which is the difference between, let's say, coaching. So I'm limited to H2F, which is the health and fitness for military. And then there's, as I said, there's special ops. Well, in order to coach at the special ops level, you have to have either NCAA Division I, pro, or Olympic. So I limited myself. Granted, those weren't around 15 years ago, but where do we want to be? Because I could take a step back and try and get a college position at 39 years old. They know that they'd have to pay me a lot more than that person who just graduated. Say their graduate assistant saying, hey, you want to stay on for 20 grand a year. That's not going to happen. So that was part of the reason why I wanted to come on, and we wanted to talk about continuing education, the reality of where to go with the decisions early on. I didn't know what I didn't know. And they really don't talk about budgeting in undergrad for CEUs. We talked about business development, we talked about budget, but that's because there's also other ways of getting your CEUs, like the NSCA also offers free quizzes now, which is great to budget in a few of those, or not budget in, but do a few of those over the course of a few years. Opportunities like this, like I will record one CEU for an hour of teaching. Don't have to pay for it, and it doesn't go under category A, it goes under category C. So it's important to know all these things, but they're, to the best of my knowledge, nobody taught them. I had to learn it along the way. Yeah. With that, that's all I have to offer for my story with regards to continuing education. But I want you to know that I'm here, even if you're watching the recorded version of this, that you can feel free to reach out to me and we can create a continuing education plan for any direction you want to go.